I'm not lying or being over the top, because it was exactly the solution we needed, exactly when we needed it.
One of the most interesting projects to come on the radar of Blinder in the last little while has been Vision Week in New Zealand, pulled together from a technical perspective by a company called ASN Media, and a pleasure now to be joined by Johnny Love from ASN. Jonathan Love, sorry. How are you, Jonathan?
Yeah, good. It doesn't matter. We're friends. They can call me Johnny.
Hey, Johnny, can you tell us a little bit more about ASN and the type of work you do?
Yes, ASN Media is a specialist video production company. So we specialize in producing industry-specific news-style content. Normally, it sees us partner with associations and peak bodies to really tell the story of their industry. But certainly over the last few months, post-COVID, it's evolved into a much wider remit than that, which is where Vision Week came out of.
Tell us a bit about Vision Week. Clearly, people won't quite know exactly what the type of project it was. Dive on and tell us about it.
Yeah, so Vision Week, we were working with Infrastructure New Zealand at the time, one of our partners, and they came to us at the start of lockdown when we were at level 4, the major lockdown, and said, look, we really feel like this is a time to reset for New Zealand. It's a time to think about, what could we be coming out of this? So we need a sort of visioning web summit event, but we don't know what that looks like or what it could be. What do you think? So we went away and had a think about it, and came back and said, hey, look, we think that we should base this around a central online TV show, because that's where our speciality is, across a week, which we bring in a lot of other interactive elements. The difference being for us, normally we would do all of that in person, but we're in level 4 lockdown. We couldn't even leave our house. So we very quickly had to use the word everyone's saying, pivot into finding a solution to do everything virtually. So we had planned to do the whole event, and this was all pulled together in 6 weeks from a standing start to when we launched, all virtually. So virtual interviews, virtual panel discussions, the virtual live streaming, etc. And so that was a completely, although not completely unknown space, we weren't used to having to actually rely on that space 100%.
One of the products that you relied on to get you through Vision Week was Blinder. How did you come about the technology and how did you use it?
Funnily enough, one of the reporters that we were using on Vision Week, we asked her for her showreel, and she sent us her showreel doing some one-on-one virtual interviews. And we said, that picture is fantastic. How did you do that? And she said, it's actually a platform called Blinder. And so we looked into it, and it gave it a go, and it is fantastic. I have to say, in terms of the picture quality that you get, and the ease of use, it was exactly what we needed. Automatically records both ends of the camera, spits it out as an MP4. Don't need to worry about anybody with technical knowledge at the other end fixing the camera or recording their screen. So yes, basically a out-of-the-box solution, which we grabbed with as many hands as we could, as quickly as we could.
Now, I've been fortunate, Johnny, to see some of the interviews that your team, in particular Greg Ward and Belinda Henley, did for Vision Week. But what are some of the interviews that you might point people's attention to that you thought were especially shining examples of both companies?
Shamabil Jacob was a really good one, because he's very used to doing virtual interviews himself, so had a great setup at his end. Greg Ward, our reporter, as you'll see, and you personally would have seen, had a fantastic setup. So taking the virtual setup to its absolute maximum in terms of using a mirrorless stills camera as an external camera, and actually setting the lighting properly, professional lighting in the room to make it look like a studio setting. So, that was a great interview. But one other that there's so many of them. And I think out of the 20 or 30 interviews we did, or it must have been around 2022 on Blinder, I think we only had to redo one end of the interviews, which was to do with the person on the interview. So, I mean, it was incredibly reliable.
Johnny, from our end, the care and attention that you put into setting up your interviews really stood out, and you reaped the rewards, I would say, with the results you saw. But for other people using Blinder and doing remote interviews, what are some of the tips you would give to do a top job?
Yeah, well, we've always prided ourselves at ASN. When I started the company, it's always been very high end. So we've always wanted to be the best we can be on any type of shoot that we do. So then moving to the virtual platform, I'm a Virgo, bit of a perfectionist. And so it was a no-brainer for me to think, well, how are we going to get the best result possible? And therefore, it was a lot of tech checks. So we knew that our end was fine. So our reporters were set up very well. But of course, it's a two-way conversation. And so it's the internet and things can go wrong. So a lot of it is mitigating as many of those risks or external factors as possible. So what we found the best thing to do was to organize a tech check with everyone we're interviewing a few days or day before the actual interview, where we could test the speed of connection, we could test their framing, we could test the lighting so they're not sitting with a massive sunlight behind them, so they're in shadow. Talk them through about if there's anybody in the house who's using Netflix, please tell them not to do it during your interview. All those sorts of things. And, do you know what an Ethernet cable is and can you plug it into your modem? Great, let's do that. And so by doing that, we negated a lot of the risks that you'd probably get in a live scenario. And so, yeah, we actually had pretty really fantastic results across the board, 720p basically, which with some people's older webcams was quite a result.
Diving into specifically the use of Blinder, where did it help you avoid headaches or save time or money?
Well, I'm always a big fan of anything that doesn't require technical knowledge of the other party. So I think that whereas Blinder, you can easily set up the calls, a third party. So we set up our producer who could set up the calls between the various people, comes straight into everyone's inbox. You simply click the link and away you go, and it's recording. So I think for us, it was fantastic after doing the tech checks and ironing out any issues to then connect our reporter with the talent, and it spits out the MP4 straight away afterwards, which we could then send straight to our editor. So the workflow was pretty seamless.
Hey, thanks so much for all that, Johnny. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'm very, very excited about where Blinder is going to go with the multi-party solution. So I'm thrilled to have been part of developing that with you guys. And yeah, we'll definitely be using it as soon as it's available.
Awesome.